Innovative content. Global audience.
Capital Territory, Abuja. We're reaching you live from our Srtv studio here in Abuja. This is Wake Up Nigeria. My name is Princess Kelsey. You're welcome to the show, and I have with me today
Patience Okusa.
How was your night, Patience?
It's fine.
You look so beautiful this morning. I like your earring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Though I didn't sleep well. I barely slept for hours, so it's stelling on me like
electricity, because I think
I was even cold.
Okay.
I was light, and then the fan was on. At the point, I had to turn it off. I was really cold. Not bad, but I slept late. I woke up very early. So that is telling on me now. My eyes are very heavy and all that.
Yes. You look good.
Thank you. And then we have a lot of trendy stories this morning. Let me give you one little expo like that. Your president is on the move again.
He's always, I feel like he's most times on the move, but this time he's on the move as he began as the last visit as the president to Saudi Arabia.
Wow, this life, nothing is even planned. And just barely months or days from now,
he become an ordinary
citizen just like us. But you know that name, the ex-president, is something.
Anyway, yeah,
it is very big something. And then we also have stories. There's FCT residents, Lagos residents. They are happy that, of course, they were able to overcome the Naira crush problem we had, and we are still having in some parts of the country, and they're happy that Easter was not that bad after all. So do you have cash, Patience?
I think it's better now
than before. That's good news. And then another story here also we have, it's the lady that died some days ago in the hotel. She was killed, and somebody has been arrested as regards that report. So we see how that play out eventually. And so we move on quickly to our newspaper reviews this morning. These are some of the stories we have making waves on the newspaper headlines this morning. I'm going to kickstart with the nation's newspapers. These are some of the stories we have here. APC, INEC to pull tribunals. Obi's petition a waste of time. And the writer says LP's candidate was PDP member when he picked ticket. Election conducted in compliance with Electoral Act, agency insists. Well, all the stories on the front page of the nation's newspaper. They're actually on page 4. And then there's another story here that says adopted ex-Nasarawa deputy governor freed. And then we also have a story here that says Buhari off to Saudi Arabia. These stories are on page 2 of the nation's newspaper. And then we have a story here as well that says the Bola Ajibola I knew by Affair Babalola. That story is on page 6 of the nation's newspaper. We also have a story here that says cash flow from banks still low, says NLC. Congress awaits reports. That story is on page 7 of the nation newspaper. As well, we have a story here that says pre-poll had Tinubu scared 18 landmines in courts. That story is on page 15 and 17 of the nation newspaper. As well, we have a story here that says NMA seeks better environment for doctors, others to operate. That story is on page 5 of the nation newspaper. We also have a story here that says Governor-elect rejects life pension plan by incumbents. House not aware of bill. That story is on page 4 of the nation newspaper. As well, we have a story here that says National Assembly, APC governors seek urgent action on zoning. Headline petitions by aspirants worry National Working Committee. That story is on page 4 of the nation newspaper. We also have a story here that says suspected Yahoo boy lynched in Ondo for crushing 2 to death. That story is on page 1 of the nation newspaper. Now, these are some of the stories, all the stories we have on the headlines this morning. Patient, I saw a story here that caught my attention. Cash flow from banks still low. Now, this is coming from MFC. You know, they had to postpone, shift the protest to wait to see whether or not there will be flow of cash. Wow. But seeing some of you As a citizen, you're saying you have cash is flowing.
Of course, I think it's better than before, but though the charges had not dropped down to how it used to be. But I don't think it will get back to that point, except
then people should go to bank and take their money. You cannot keep extorting somebody, and we are all in this economy made them together. So it's better you go to bank once in a while, cash out what you can use for a period of time.
In some places, I feel POS are already suffering. POS operators are already suffering. While in some places, there's still low flow of cash. My question is, where is the new cash? Because so far, I've only been seeing the old cash. I've not seen the new cash. And there's something else. There's a story that caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
They said Obi picked presidential form while he was still
a PDP member.
I read that, I came across that news this morning. I was like, how?
But he left PDP
but he was in PDP. If they say that, how can he be in PDP as a member of PDP and then pick a form for LP?
You might just want to see the details of that story to get to the bottom of this headline.
Okay, and then this story about the guy that was lynched, the guy. I think they should do something about that.
They say suspected Yahoo. That means
he was lynched to death.
He was lynched to death.
That means
not to death. He was lynched not to death, just lynched for crushing two to death.
Yeah, I think I heard the story yesterday. I saw it on social media. He was actually stoned to death.
Wow.
Yeah, he was stoned to death, and I was like, they need to do something about why stone him to death for killing, even if they suspected him to be a Yahoo boy, but they're not sure. So why stone him to death? I think we need to do something about this jungle justice of the thing.
Yes, that is right. And then I saw another story here as well. They say NMA seeks better environment for doctors, others to operate. I think this is a good one. We cannot keep having our doctors going out, even though we know the welfare packages, the salaries here, and nothing to write home about. Federal government owing salary here and there, but we know as well that we need them more here in the country. Yeah. So they should create a better environment, not just for doctors and others, but every citizen should be in a better environment. We'll move on quickly now to the next newspaper we have here.
And then the next newspaper this morning from the Guardian newspaper, the major news says Nigeria's industrial base weaker over poor credit support from banks. Well, you find that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And then we also have a story here that says Buhari undertakes last official trip to Saudi Arabia, salutes Dangote at 66. And then we have a story here that says at 95, struggle continues for a better Nigeria, says Adebanjo. You find that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And so we also have a story here that says the World Bank sees 2% output growth in 2023. You find that story on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And then we also have a story here that says at 80, Biden consider re-election in 2024. You find that story on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And so we also have a story that says private school operators and burden of multiple charges. Those are the story making waves on the Guardian newspaper this morning. Princess, I think the story of Biden considering re-election.
I was just waiting for you to learn, so I will say something about that. Like I thought it's only in Nigeria they used to say, these people are old, they shouldn't run, they are too old. So if they have people like this 80 and they're still coming out, but the good thing is that I think in politics it's not just the age we're talking about, but people that are competent, that will have the interest of the nation at heart, not just their personal interest. So, and also I saw a story where private schools operators and burdens of multiple charges. it's pressing on parents.
It's really pressing.
Like the other day you were here when somebody was calling me as regards to my kid's sister, and I was asking so many questions. You pay this, you pay that, you pay so much. I don't know why, because is it that the government schools now, what do we do about government schools? Most of us who went to government schools then they were really standard, but now most of them are nothing to write home about. So that's another call this morning for the government as well. Yes, do something about these public schools. As for parents to be really these private schools are just too expensive.
Seriously,
even the ones they call the Christians private school, they are more expensive than the regular ones. I don't know how people survive. Parents. Anyway, we'll move on quickly this morning to the Punch newspaper, and these are some of the stories making waves this morning. We have here APC kicks as Northern senators insist on Senate presidency. That story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And the writer says in Dume, Kano, Niger senators poised to contest, says Senate need competent hands. Another writer here says any Muslim aspiring to be Senate president lack respect for constitution, vice chair. And another writer says APC yet to decide on zoning, but won't allow another Saki Dogara scenario, says spokesman. All these stories on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And then we also have a story here that says Buhari should suspend the fuel subsidy removal, declared marketers. That story is on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. We also have a story here that says UK restriction can't stop doctors' immigration, NMA and NAD. That story is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. There's a story here as well that say port reconstruction will cost $800 million, says NPA boss. That story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And there's a story here that says Easter, Lagos FCT residents celebrate, grateful for surviving cash crunch. That story is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. As well, we have a story here that says police arrest suspects in Instagram clothes vendors' deaths. That story is on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And the last story here says Nigeria unemployment rate to hit 41% in 2023. KPMG says on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Now, these are some of the stories we have this morning. There's a story here that says Nigerian employment rate will hit 41%. This is not a good one at all.
But then, like you said the other time, I think we need to stand up and go into entrepreneurship.
That is just the best thing to do, because you can't keep waiting for white collar jobs and they are not forthcoming, and then you keep wasting away. No, you have to do something, be productive on your own. And then as well, we have a story here that say police arrest suspects in Instagram clothes vendors' deaths. That was the lady I talked about earlier on the show. She died some days ago, and somebody has been arrested as regards to her death. I just will plead with the police to bring to see that particular case to a logical conclusion. And then Buhari should suspend fuel subsidy removal, declare marketers. I think is a good call, because we can't have to, whether or not just for a period of time or for a long time, we cannot afford to buy fuel for 450, 750 naira. That is not a good one. I feel like the policies might be right. I always say that, but maybe the timing is not all right. And then as well, we have doctors. UK's restriction won't stop doctors from migration. We're appealing with our doctors. We know that even though the country is